Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well today. My name is Andrew McIntosh. This is another episode of our weekly strategy sessions for first gen entrepreneurs. I'm the founder of the First Gen Entrepreneur podcast and community. It's the only place that delivers practical advice for the brave souls or crazy souls who were the first ones in their family to start a business. And each week, I interview a different subject matter expert on their area of expertise. And the idea is to extract valuable information that you can put to good use in your business and hopefully save you some headache, some heartache, and anything else it costs you. So this week, my guest is Thomas Burris. Hello, Thomas. Nice to have you
Hey
today.
there.
How are you? You having a good
How are
day?
you? Yeah, so far so good.
Good. So Thomas focuses on three things in his business. He's, by the way, the founder and CEO of a company called Simple IT in Indianapolis. And what he does is one, helps companies to avoid costly downtime. We know it's very expensive when your systems are down. Two, he helps companies to implement cybersecurity best practices. And three, he helps them put technology to good use, to use it as a way to actually grow your business. So today we're going to focus on that second one, cybersecurity. So Thomas, I know we read about it, we hear about it in the news all the time. Big companies even are just kind of getting hacked left and right. True?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a problem for small businesses too. I think the number is 43% of all attacks are small businesses, and it's detrimental. 60% of them don't last 6 months. So, yeah, it's something to be worried about.
So we're not here to fear monger, right? We're not
Right.
here to try to scare people, but we do want to be realistic about the fact that this could happen to your business, even if you're a small business, even a solopreneur, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So what Thomas and I agreed to do is Thomas is going to share 5 things that a small business can do, even a solopreneur, what you can do to help protect yourself. But at the same time, we recognize chances are you don't have a huge cybersecurity budget or even an IT budget, let alone cybersecurity. So we're going to focus on 5 things that you can do that are either very inexpensive or in some cases free altogether. So, and lastly, a couple things. If you have any questions about cybersecurity, about IT in general, this is a great opportunity. Just go ahead and throw those in the chat, and we'll be happy to address those later. And then secondly, don't like you need to write these 5 things down. Instead, if you're interested, put a thumbs up in the chat, and we'll reach out to you because we've got a PDF that we created that has all 5 of them listed and some more details. So don't worry about taking notes, but just leave a thumbs up, and we'll be happy to follow up with you after the event is over. So Thomas, let's go ahead and just dive right into it. What would you say is the first tip that you have to offer for someone that they can improve their cybersecurity posture, if you will?
My first tip is always get a password manager, right? Passwords are still, for the foreseeable future, going to be the keys to your digital kingdom. Even though we're like at the threshold of a passwordless society, Apple and Google and all the big players are starting to try to develop how, pass keys and how do we not have to worry about passwords and our devices become the password. But for now, right, that's a tiny door and we've got a lot of people to get through it. So passwords are still going to be around for a long time. Get a password manager, and I don't mean store it in your browser, because if your browser gets compromised, then your passwords are exposed. If your account that you log into the browser is compromised, your passwords are exposed. Get something like LastPass or Bitwarden. They both have free tiers that give you an unlimited password count. They give you a password generator so that you can create passwords automatically and not even have to think about it. You log into the manager, the little extensions in your browser, and it populates your password for you. It's going to be safe. It's going to be secure. And you're going to avoid a lot of headache down the road of where did I put that password? Is it in this notebook? Is it in this spreadsheet? And yeah, it'll just keep you a lot safer. The other thing I recommend is using passphrases. Instead of a super long, complex password that you might never remember, put a couple of words that are maybe unrelated together, and then riff on that with numbers and symbols so that it looks like the word still. My favorite one, did a video on our YouTube channel several years ago, and it was actually my older daughter was like, yeah, like hippo burps, right? Crazy password. You're always going to remember it. Going to be super complex. And you just, the two P's are capitalized. The O is a 0. And it's just something that's going to be harder for someone to crack into, because who's going to think hippo burps as a possible password? And the third thing that a password manager lets you do is enable MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. So this is, you've got your username that says, this is who I am. You've got your password that says, I have the key. Multi-factor authentication, you're probably familiar with. You might get texted a 6-digit code to log into your bank, or you have a 6-digit code generated for some other login. Password managers do a great job now of just incorporating and integrating MFA into themselves so that you have a seamless transition to username, password, MFA code. You're into whatever it is, your bank, QuickBooks, whatever software you might use to run your business.
Nice. So something that I often think about when it comes to a password manager, my personal favorite is called 1Password. You mentioned LastPass. I've used that as well. But one of the cardinal sins of passwords is that people will use the same password in multiple places, right? And they usually think that they're being clever by changing one little thing or by incrementing the numbers here and there. But something that really kind of nailed this home for me, years ago, Home Depot got hacked, right? So the password that I had at Home Depot, if I had used that at other places, even though I'm not the one who got hacked, it was them who got hacked. But now the password that I had is now exposed and is out there for sale on the internet, where someone knows my email address and password for Home Depot. So if I use that password or something similar to it anywhere else, that's all at risk now, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But a password manager fixes that, correct?
Yeah, password manager fixes that because of the password generator that they often incorporate. So if you are signing up for a new service and you've got the password manager in place, you might have to turn it on in a setting to enable the password generator, but it will see that it's got an empty password field. It doesn't know the password, and it's going to offer to fill that in and automatically save it to the password manager, so that you've got it down the road and it's going to be secure, and it's going to be, it's going to be a strong password they generate, so that you don't have to worry about, I've used the same key for 6 different doors, and now it's been stolen at one place and it's exposing me across the rest of the places that I need to do business.
Right, right. So because you have a unique password on every website that you use, and also because it's a crazy long password, because it's filling it in, you don't need to remember it.
Right.
Then if someone does get hacked, like Home Depot or Target or whatever, they've only gotten one password for that one thing. They don't have the keys to the rest of your stuff, right?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Awesome. So
And I will actually, let me interject really quick. One of the other nice things about password managers that I'm recommending more and more to small businesses is a lot of them will also save payment details like credit cards. Instead of, say, you brought up Home Depot and Target and Amazon, we often just store our credit card information with them. And it's happened at Target in the past, not a drag on Target. We spend most of our time there. But if they have your credit card information and it gets breached, then someone has your credit card and you've got to watch for any false charges and disputes. And that's just a nightmare and a headache. Password managers now are also allowing you to securely store your payment information so that it will automatically populate and you never have to save it with the payment processor or the vendor you're using. It's always in your password manager, safe and secure, locked up tight.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, when you go to check out on on Target's website and they have that little checkbox that says save my credit card information for
Don't do
later.
it.
And you don't need to do it because your password
Yeah.
manager will fill it in for you each time. So
Right. Yep.
it's not an inconvenience for you anymore, but they don't have your credit card information on file anymore. And that's kind of the security risk you're talking about.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Very nice. So let's talk about, hopefully that all makes sense, everyone. Password managers, big deal. Let's talk about your second tip. What would the next thing be that you recommend?
Yeah. Second tip is encrypt your hard drive on, if you're using a laptop or a desktop, make sure your hard drive is encrypted. This sounds like some scary Jason Bourne stuff. You're thinking hackers and all sorts of like code running down your screen. But really encrypting your hard drive is not that difficult. In Windows or in Mac OS, Windows, it's on Windows Home, it's just like device encryption. It's some really random generic name. On Windows Pro, it's BitLocker, and on Mac OS, it's File Vault. So if you just go in your settings and you look for encryption, what this does is it encrypts the data on your drive. So if your workstation, the hard drive, or your laptop were ever stolen, that data is encrypted and cannot be accessed just by plugging it into something else. And your password or some other key are the decryption keys that are needed to get the data that's on that drive. So super easy to do, super important to do, because it's just an easy win to make sure that, like, if my laptop gets lost or you leave it at a Starbucks or somebody smashes your window and grabs it, all the data that's on there is not at risk of being exposed by somebody that might just try to pull it off.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that your bankers, your healthcare professionals, people like that, it's more than just recommended. It's actually they're obligated to do
Right.
that.
Yep.
But for just private individuals, say I run, I'm a benefits consultant or I'm a marketing person. The advantage here is that if my laptop gets stolen out of my car, if that drive had been encrypted, there's just really nothing for me to worry about in terms of them being able to then access my personal information, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And the two things again, what were the names? If you have Windows, you should look at your
It's if you just go to some retailer and buy a laptop, you're probably going to have Windows Home, and it's just called device encryption. If
okay.
you've got Windows Pro, it's BitLocker, and then
Okay.
if you're on a Mac, it's called File Vault.
Okay. All right. So hopefully those two things will stick. You can look that up and see if you're encrypted or not, and if not, turn that on. So thank you for that. So let's talk about your third tip. What do you recommend someone does to stay secure?
Yeah. Third tip is make sure that you're installing updates on your computer. This is probably one of the things that we see the most often not being taken care of. So you see a little pop-up window that says there are updates that are available for your computer. Restart it tonight, or do you want to restart it now? And we always click try later, try later, try later, try later until it's time for a new laptop. And then we've never updated, right? Or, something happens and the laptop's gone and you just don't think about it, right? But what you really should be seeing when you see that update is that update notification is Windows or Mac coming to you saying, we have found some doors and windows that were left open and we are closing them and you need to restart, because most of the time it is a security update that is available for you. Microsoft is religious on releasing them every second Tuesday, I think it is, Patch Tuesday as we call it in the industry. And then, Mac will release them, Apple, I should say. Apple will release them for Mac OS pretty frequently, but they don't have as rigid of a pattern that they release updates for.
Awesome. So that's interesting to me, because I think for a lot of people, myself included, at times when that thing pops up and says, "Hey, we need to install updates," you kind of don't want to fool with it in the moment, because it's like
Right.
I've got work to do. and I don't have 30 minutes for this thing to go through and reboot and all that. It's a hassle, right?
Yep, it's disruptive.
Right. So, but the way you described it, though, it's like Microsoft or Apple coming to you and saying, "Hey, we found a window and a door that was unlocked, and so by installing this patch, that's kind of like us locking that window or locking that door, securing it." So,
Right. Yep.
when you look at it that way, hopefully it shifts, kind of your perspective on it a little bit.
Yep. And a
So,
lot of times they will allow you to automatically install those updates, and it's just a checkbox. And you will get a notification that says there are updates available. We will install them later tonight. And usually that's like between midnight and 4 a.m. when people aren't usually on their computers.
gotcha.
So
Yeah.
super easy to just set it and forget it.
Okay. All right. Very nice. So that I think handles the third one. Let's talk about your fourth tip. What would you recommend?
Yeah, fourth tip is to get malware protection. So this is one that's not completely free. You're usually going to get a 14-day trial from your big vendors like Webroot or Malwarebytes or Bitdefender. But the reason why I recommend getting malware protection is that malware is everywhere, right? It's a very broad category. And really, it's defined as any software that's designed to disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access to your computer. So, you're susceptible to malware. We think of fake Adobe Flash updates, where you would get a pop-up in your browser, or there'd be an ad that says Adobe's out of date, download it now. You download it, run the installer, but on the back end, it's actually installing malware that eventually encrypts your drive or wipes it, or pops up with the screen that says, "This is the FBI. We know what's on your computer. Pay us $600 in Amazon gift cards. Call this number. Don't call the police." Those kinds of things are going to be disruptive, and they're across all of the platforms. So if you're using Windows, or you're using Mac OS, or if you're really nerdy and you're using Linux, there's always malware that's being developed for them. And it can be as easy and simple as an extension that you put in your browser that is collecting information on you. And, we call it spyware, and it just sends it off to somebody else somewhere else, which we don't want. Nobody wants to know what I'm buying on Amazon or Target. We don't want people to know that. So get a malware protection software. Like I said, Malwarebytes, Bitdefender, Webroot, those are some of the big ones. Make sure that you're paying for it, because that's where you're going to get the protection. And it's going to scan your computer pretty regularly. Some of them have started to move into, this is super technical and nerdy, but behavior-based detection. So if it sees something happen on your computer that shouldn't be happening, it's going to start jumping into effect and working and doing the things that it needs to do to keep your workstation safe.
Awesome. Yeah, good deal. So do you have any, and this is maybe a curveball, but do you have any particular recommendations? Like if you have a Mac or if you have Windows, like what you would recommend a person look into?
Yeah, Malwarebytes has always been a pretty good one. And the one that we normally recommend to friends and family, or to somebody who doesn't have, a huge business behind them. You've got maybe one or a few employees. Malwarebytes is probably, it's our go-to. Bitdefender is also another really good one. And then Webroot is pretty good. It's kind of in the class of like the Nortons and the McAfees, where like we would lean more towards Malwarebytes or Bitdefender. And as you start to grow, you want to look at something like SentinelOne, which is a much deeper malware prevention tool that has a lot of cool functionality, but also is a lot more rigorous and perceptive on what it's actually going to catch and eliminate from a workstation.
Okay. And I assume comes at a higher price point compared to
It does.
like a
Yep.
malware.
Yep.
So again, just for context, we're trying to keep it in the harmony with things that are cheap,
Right.
Still pack some punch and are a good value, but not going to put you in the poorhouse, beefing up your cybersecurity. So thank you suggestions. So that takes us now to our fifth and final suggestion. So what would you suggest a person does for cybersecurity?
Yeah, this one is not going to seem like a cybersecurity issue, but it is at a higher level. And I'm going to tell you to get business email. Don't use a Gmail or Hotmail account for your business.
Okay.
Use Google Workspace or Microsoft 365. Those are the heavy hitters. There are other ones out there through like Zoho and Proton Mail that you can set up business email, because for one thing, email scam attacks are proliferous. I don't even know if that's a word, but they're everywhere.
Prolific?
Right? Everybody, yeah, they are prolific, but they are also just, they're widespread. They're easy to do. It's easy to get someone's email address. It's easy to put together, a list of 600 people and then create a fake email address and try to scam them. So, when you're getting an email from thomas.simpleIT@gmail.com, that doesn't carry as much weight or legitimacy as thomas@simpleITindy.com does. So it's going to immediately start to get scrutinized more and potentially end up in a quarantine or a spam somewhere, and you're not going to get through to a prospective client or an actual client, and you're going to go, why isn't this invoice paid? And then they're going to go, you've been in our spam for the last 6 months and we don't know what's going on. Well, it's because you're using the Gmail account as opposed to something that's built with your actual domain. And it maintains your brand legitimacy too, right? Like, you don't want to have your brand dragged through the mud early on, because that'll set you up for long-term problems.
Okay.
The other thing I will say with having, that's on the outbound side, it'll give you legitimacy in the marketplace. But on the inbound side, these also have pretty capable and preventative measures for spam and phishing and all of the kind of email scams that we see coming out. So they've got it built in. You can go in and maybe tweak it a little bit to make it more restrictive or less restrictive. But they do a good job of catching a lot of the inbound spam and phishing attempts that might come to you, and just keep them out of your inbox.
Okay, awesome. So, and those, to my knowledge, aren't terribly expensive either, right?
Nope. Yeah. If you're a solopreneur, you could do all of these things for less than $20 a month.
Okay. Yep. So again, not going to put you in the poorhouse,
right?
But gives you some legitimacy that you wouldn't otherwise have with just a generic Gmail account.
Right.
And has some additional security features that you can take advantage of that you don't with the free stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've considered making that a LinkedIn post in the past of like, if you were shopping for a new lawyer, and you make a few phone calls and you find out that one of them is a branded domain name, and then the other one is Thomas the lawyer at gmail.com. Which one are you going to pick just on that alone?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and that's not a cybersecurity thing, but it's just kind of one more reason to have a legitimate business account.
Yeah, I would say it's cybersecurity in the sense that, like, you're immediately going to get flagged as potentially dangerous on the outbound, right? So like, you're going to end up in spam and phishing quarantines if you're using a Gmail account as opposed to using a branded domain. And you can set up, here we go into the technical world. Like, you can set up DNS records called SPF. It's not Sun Protection Factor, and DKIM that basically then authenticate your domain even further. So if it goes to somebody, they will check for those records and then will allow your email through. And it also, so it helps your domain also not get exploited or scammed for nefarious purposes.
Okay. So yeah, just again, some additional features, measures that are available in the business class stuff.
Yep.
And that's, I think, something that a lot of people struggle with is like, hey, why pay for a business class whatever when there's this cheap version available here? And it's like, let's use Home Depot again. If I walk into Home Depot, I can see John Deere mowers out there at the front that are way cheaper than the John Deere you get at the actual John Deere dealership, right?
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
because they're made of completely different parts. It's like two separate things. So
Yep.
that's okay. I appreciate that. So hopefully this has been helpful for you folks who've been watching. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to throw this one out here first. This is from Nikki. So Nikki, thank you for posing this question. And again, this is a bit of a curveball for you, Thomas. I don't know if you want to weigh in on this or not, but is it okay to have your banking app on your phone? Is there any kind of concern that jumps out at you by doing that?
I mean, if you shouldn't have your banking app on your phone, then I'm guilty of not doing that because I have my banking app on my phone. An app itself is usually going to require you to put in some sort of authentication. Now, if you've got your banking app and you've got it set to just automatically log you in and you don't have a password on your phone and you don't have like a proof of verification on the app itself, right? Those are two walls that you can create for someone to get into the app. But the app itself is going to authenticate through a ton of different letter and number types of encryption that they have to, because we talked about this earlier, they're federally regulated to use these measures of encryption in order for you to get in. So, I mean, if you're not doing anything to protect the device itself, then yeah, don't have your banking app on your phone, but then also don't access it in your browser on your phone because it's as equally susceptible to being breached in that way too.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I hope that answered your question for you, Nikki. Gave you a little peace of mind there. This is not so much a question as an additional suggestion or tip from Andy Runyon, who I know specializes in cyber liability insurance. So he's pretty well connected in this community as well. But his suggestion is to check out CISA, however you want to say it, their website. Which I personally have seen. I don't know. Have you had a chance to look at that much at all, Thomas?
I have not had a chance to look at CISA, but yeah, any website that, like CIS framework, NIST, anything that the federal government puts out, because they're starting to push more and more for standards and benchmarks as far as security things go. It's going to be a good resource. It might be way over your head, but if you can find one that's pretty accessible, definitely check it out.
Yeah, I think they're working on some pretty cool initiatives where they're trying to distill it down, make it more accessible, offer some government resources to help you beef up, because this is very much on the minds of the modern entrepreneur in 2022. So thank you, Andy, for submitting that comment. So again, we've got a few thumbs up in the chat. So we've got some takers on this PDF file that you made. So again, no worries about that. We'll send you a copy of it. And as always, Thomas, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share some of these tips. I hope these were beneficial to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, you're welcome, Andrew. It was fun to have this conversation and to just give some people some easy wins to help keep themselves safer out there.
Okay. And if anybody has any bonus questions or something they think of after the fact, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Thomas?
Probably LinkedIn's the best way to get in touch with me directly, but the business is on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook at SimpleITND. And I'm trying to think, or just connect with me directly on LinkedIn, Thomas Burris. This bald head is right there.
Yeah, if you feature it prominently in the profile photo, it should make it easier to spot. So that's awesome. Yeah, I think LinkedIn's the absolute just best way to get in touch with anybody these days, because then you can take it from there. So awesome. Well, thank you again, Thomas, and thanks to everybody who was watching today, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Andrew. See you guys.